Hey folks, this is part 4 of the little mini BMPRO series that I've been doing for about the last month or so. And if you caught last week's video, I actually went in and replaced the internal battery in this OEM tablet here. And so it's been about 3 weeks since I recorded that video, and this tablet has been running like a champ ever since. There's no more sluggishness. The connectivity's been flawless over the last 3 weeks through Bluetooth and the cloud there. And so I really would encourage you, if you're having issues with your BMPRO system, especially if you're getting over the 1 year mark, or approaching the 2 year mark, or even over that, definitely explore the option of replacing that internal battery. Because like I said in the previous video, I think what's going on is Android is detecting that there's something going on with the battery. It's getting to the end of its life on the number of charge cycles, and the voltage is fluctuating enough to clue in Android that, hey, something's going on with the power, and it starts to slow down and restrict resources. And so I think that's what was the cause of the problem. So definitely watch that video if you haven't already. And then if you caught the second video in this mini series where I attempted to replace the entire tablet with an OEM equivalent, you know that it didn't quite turn out as expected, and all the aftermarket tablets that I explored were really lesser specs, lesser quality, believe it or not, than this OEM tablet here. And so that's why I pursued the battery route. But I wanted to give an update on that, because since then I did come across one other contender as far as an aftermarket tablet, and that one is from Lenovo. The only challenge is it's been discontinued, but the model is the Lenovo M7 Gen 3, and it's a 7-inch Android tablet. I'll put a link in the description below where you can buy it. Like I said, the challenge is it's discontinued, but looking at it in terms of specs, it's almost equal to this OEM tablet, a little bit better in some areas, definitely better on the screen. And so if you're able to source that tablet, and that's something you still want to do, entirely replace the tablet with an aftermarket, I think that Lenovo M7 Gen 3 is the one to go for. It's just a little bit smaller. It's a 7-inch screen, but a little bit smaller on the body itself. So you probably have to fill in that void in order for it to be secure in the bezel, but I think otherwise that's probably your best bet. And if you're watching this and you have any experience with that Lenovo M7 Gen 3, definitely let us know in the comments below, what your experience with it was. I think if you can source it, it looks like you're probably going to be in the neighborhood of about $150. So not too bad, considering the cost of this OEM one is, $500, $600, $700. But that being said, today's video is all about adding a second higher quality, higher spec tablet to the coach. So today we're not replacing the OEM tablet, we're just adding a second tablet that's going to be more or less dedicated to the coach, to running the BMPRO app and controlling everything there. And when I say higher quality, higher spec, I'm using that term a little bit loosely, because for most of us, we don't have money growing on trees in our backyard, and so we're not going to drop $500 on a second tablet that's just going to be sitting in the coach most of its life. So I'm using that term higher quality, higher spec a little bit loosely. I still want to be budget conscious on what that second tablet is. And for me specifically, the use case is really having a second tablet that's going to be located back in the front rather, in the master bedroom there, that I'm primarily going to be using the BMPRO app there. That's really the second most, I think, common place where I'm changing settings on the BMPRO app. And so that's really the use case for me, but I may also from time to time pull it out of the master bedroom and maybe walk outside around the coach or do other things, so it's something that could be dockable more or less. But for the most part, it's going to spend its life there in the bedroom. And so here we are in the master bedroom, and check this out. So this is the second tablet that I've added to the coach here. And what drew me to this primarily was the price point combined with its specs. So this is the Lenovo Tab M9. So remember when I mentioned the M7 earlier as a potential replacement for the OEM? Well, this is basically a later generation of that same series. And it's a larger tablet though. So let me go over the specs real quick and why I chose this specific one here. So again, it's the Lenovo Tab M9. You can see there it's got a 9-inch screen. And so it's slightly larger than the 7-inch. It's got a higher resolution screen, 1340 by 800 on the resolution. It's an IPS display, which basically means you're going to get a really good viewing angle overall. It's got an octa-core processor compared to the quad-core on the OEM, 3 gigs of RAM or memory, whereas the OEM has 2 gigs. And then best of all, it's running Android 12. It's not Android 12 Go, it's a full-fledged Android 12. So those are the basic specs on this. Typically I see this priced around $149, but I was able to pick it up on sale for $100 at Best Buy, and I've seen different sales on it over the last couple weeks as I've been looking at it. And so really this aftermarket tablet exceeds the specs on the OEM tablet on all the major fronts, you know, from the screen size, the screen resolution, the processor, the RAM, even down to the Android version. And so it really is superior on all those fronts. I also like that it's got a real thin bezel. You can see going around, it just looks real clean. There's no logos or anything on it, and just looks real simple. But let me talk about how I mounted it, you know, why I chose this location. Like I said, I really wanted something in the bedroom because this is the second most common area that I'm interacting with the BMPRO app and everything. And so that's why I chose this location here. But I found this really neat mount that's basically a universal mount really for any tablet. I mean, you could put an iPad here, but it basically is made out of some kind of silicone, you know, rubberized type material. And it's got a little groove basically for the lip or the edge of the tablet to slide into on the top and the bottom. And it's 2 separate pieces. So when you mount it, you just have to assign, you know, the distance between the 2 pieces so that essentially it hugs it. You know, it's basically like 2 fingers squeezing and holding the tablet all the time. And it looks really simple and clean. I mean, especially from a distance, it looks like something that could be OEM. You can see it hugs the wall really tightly here. I mean, maybe I'm sticking out about 3/4 an inch to the face of the tablet. I'd say it sticks out just a little bit more than this OEM remote here on the wall to give you some perspective. But I really like this mount overall because it's real low profile, like I said, but then when I want to use the tablet elsewhere, it's really simple, even one-handed. I just lift up on that top part of the bracket, and then I can remove the tablet, and I can go outside, adjust slides or lights, whatever I need to do. And then when I'm done, I can simply dock it back in here. And I'll give you a close-up of what that mount looks like. Again, it's just a silicone material, and you can see it kind of has a groove here on the top and bottom. It even has a hole down here if you were to have a tablet with a charging port on the bottom. But it's got basically just 3 screws holding it in there that are anchored into the wall. And so you set the height, the distance between these 2 pieces so that it hugs the tablet properly and keeps it in there. So when I'm ready then to reinsert and redock the tablet, I just go on the bottom first like that and then go up to the top, and there you go. You can see it's nice and firmly mounted again. Now, as far as charging goes and getting power to the tablet, on this model it's got a USB-C port that's off to the side here. You know, the camera is over here, and so really I've got it turned in the landscape mode. But it does have a USB-C power there, and my plan is just to charge it as needed. And so far in the last roughly 3 weeks that I've been using this, I'm getting about a week's worth of use out of the tablet before I need to recharge. And since it's right here already, I already have a bedside charger that I use for my phone, and it's that same USB-C charger, and so I just plug it into the side, you know, let it charge up for a couple hours, and then I'm done. So for me, you know, I don't live in the RV full time. Typically most of my trips are going to be a week or less, and so that works out really well. I don't need to permanently, you know, have a power supply, a charger feeding into this. However, if you wanted to, you certainly could fish something up through this wall from the basement and, you know, have an L adapter that goes into that to keep it powered all the time. But for me personally, I don't mind having to plug it in, you know, about once a week or so to top it off. And I will include links to this specific tablet and this mount that I'm using here in the description below, so I appreciate you using those to support the channel. But in the remainder of the video, I want to talk about setting this tablet up so that it's optimized for the BMPRO app, you know, so that everything runs smoothly there. And so the first thing we're going to do is go into settings when I first got the tablet, and I wanted to make sure that we're updated to the latest Android version. And you know, technically Lenovo kind of takes Android and puts their own touches on top of it, and so it's really coming from Lenovo after Android releases kind of their main version there. But under here you can see system update, and you can go ahead and check and make sure that everything's up to date. I think that's just good practice to make sure you're up to date. But the single most important step, really the biggest thing that you need to do to make sure that this tablet runs smoothly for the BMPRO app, is to control what apps are running in the background and installed on this tablet. Because as you know, this is a personal tablet designed for personal use, so it's got a bunch of different kind of built-in core apps like calendar or calculator that are, installed on the tablet from the factory. And then sometimes Lenovo will even add their own apps onto the tablet. And so we want to restrict those different apps that we're not even going to use, because it might be checking our location in the background or doing other things that ultimately take away resources, the processor or memory from the BMPRO app running there. And so this is really the single most important thing. I talked about this in my initial review video on the OEM tablet back about 2 years ago, but I really think it's an important step to take. And so to do that, we're going to go into the settings under the sprocket there, and then we're going to go to apps. And under apps, we'll hit see all apps. You can see I've got 37 of them that came with it. And we just don't need all those apps. So you're going to go through all these different ones, and you can see if you need to pause it and see which ones I've disabled. But basically, some of the apps, it will let you completely uninstall. So I think there was maybe 45 apps or thereabouts initially. Some of them it let me completely uninstall, and that's fine. But some of them, like calculator or calendar, you can't just uninstall, but you can disable. And by disabling them, it removes them from the app drawer, but it also keeps those apps then from running or doing things in the background. So you can see, for instance, calculator disabled, calendar disabled, camera disabled, right? I'm not going to be taking pictures or web conferencing off of this tablet. I did leave Chrome open only because, that's the internet browser. I might once in a while use this as an internet browser, maybe to troubleshoot something or get some information. So I did leave that app open, but if you're not going to use the internet, you can of course disable that as well. You can see contacts disabled, data restore tool disabled, drive I also left open in case I need to put some files here on the tablet. You've got things like Gmail. I'm not going to be checking my email on here, so disabled, right? So basically go through and disable all the different ones that you're not going to be using. Some of them it won't let you disable, and then some of them are kind of core apps related to Android, like Google Play services, for instance. You don't want to disable this one because this one is related to Android, and I think if you did, it might mess some things up there. But basically just go through here. I'll get to the end of the list so you can see which ones I've disabled completely. Some of them, like this Messages app, it won't let you disable it. And so unfortunately that has to be running, but I just didn't open it or sign into it or anything, so hopefully that won't make too much of a difference. And speaking of which, when you come across an app that it won't let you disable, this one's called Digital Wellbeing, what you can do is go in here to permissions and make sure it doesn't have any granted permissions, because at least that way it's not hopefully doing things in the background and taking resources. So definitely go through and do that to all the apps that you can't disable, and that'll just really help restrict where those resources are, so that we can get as many of those resources, the processor, the RAM, dedicated to running the BMPRO app, which is really just going to make it run nice and smoothly. Then I've got just a few other recommendations to go through, and one is the background that you choose for your desktop, your home screen here. And Jayco from the factory on the OEM tablet has a real bright white background with their logo on and everything, and it's my understanding that when you have a brighter background like that, that's going to take more power for the display to run that compared to something with darker colors. And so I went ahead and changed out this background from the Lenovo. Instead of using the Jayco OEM backdrop, I kind of made my own here with a darker background there, and that way I'm not using as much battery power, especially since I'm not plugged in permanently. Then otherwise under settings, there's a few other things you want to do under display. Of course, you can control the brightness and have adaptive brightness turn on. So as the lighting in this room, the ambient goes up or down, it'll kind of adjust the brightness automatically. But you can change things like the dark theme and make sure that that's enabled, because again, we want darker backgrounds so that we're not consuming as much power. And then the remainder of the settings here, you can control how much the screen timeout is. I chose 1 minute because typically if I walk away from here, I'm going to be adjusting something within 60 seconds or less. If I'm not, I'm done with the tablet. So I've got that set to 1 minute of inactivity, and then the screen turns off actually. On the OEM tablet, it just kind of goes black, but the screen is lit up still. So this one, it actually is going to turn off the screen completely. And then to wake it up, it's really slick. You don't have to touch the power button or anything. That's actually hidden by this mount. if you use this setting right here, double tap to lock, then you can double tap the screen to lock or unlock immediately. So after a minute of inactivity, you can see the screen goes completely black, and then to wake it up, I just go tap tap, and then it's right back there. So I think that's a really nice feature to have turned on here. Again, that's under the display settings, and double tap to lock there. Then the only other thing that you really need to set up here is under the security. You basically need to turn off the screen pattern or a screen lock, because if you don't, when you double tap or wake it up anytime, it's going to come up with a pin. Now you might want to have a pin set up where you have to enter something in to get into the BMPRO system, and that's fine if you do, but that's really the only other thing here. I'm not using this with my data on it, so I'm not concerned about data being on here, but that's really the last setting that you need to make sure is set up, and that way everything's really optimized and streamlined to using the BMPRO app. So like I said, I've been using this for about 3 weeks, and it's super slick, really smooth, haven't encountered any connectivity issues. I mean, it's just really, you can see snappy going through the different screens there and scrolling. And so I really think this is a great budget choice for a second tablet. All right, so that is a summary of adding a second aftermarket tablet to your coach here. I'm really pleased with the way this turned out. I think it looks really great in the bedroom on the wall right there. And it's going to be really handy to be able to adjust things with another dedicated tablet like this one here. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Like I said earlier, I will include links to the tablet, the M9 model, along with the mount that I ended up settling on. And I'll also include a link to that M7 tablet that I mentioned could be a suitable aftermarket replacement for the main OEM tablet there. If you guys have any questions, definitely drop me a comment below. And as always, thanks for watching.